Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's clinging to dear life at 100K, and it might be because a Samurai wallet developer just got 5 years in prison, apparently for the crime of writing code that worked too well. Elon Musk's Grok AI told a 12-year-old to send nudes, which means your Tesla might not just rear-end a mailbox, it might also send you a spicy text. And U.S. government just grounded 10% of flights because nothing says fiscal responsibility like turning Thanksgiving into the Oregon Trail. All right, all that and more on today's show. Let's go. Good morning, my darlings of digital disruption, and welcome back to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from San Francisco, California. It is Friday, that magical day when you're too broke to trade, too tired to care, and too emotionally damaged to check your portfolio. But before we dive into today's chaos, where Elon's AI is hitting on children and Trump's tariffs are apparently just incidental, let's do the thing. Smash that subscribe button like the DOJ smashes a privacy wallet. And don't forget to follow RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and me at Hank at RoxomTV on everywhere you choose to do your doom scrolling. But right now, let's check in on how Bitcoin is doing this morning in today's market rundown. Let's go. All right, we're back, and the last 24 hours or so haven't been great. Right now, Bitcoin's sitting around 100K. We saw it dip briefly below that 100K mark, but we're holding support pretty steady right there. We'll see how things are going. They're saying it could dip back to 92, but if it stays above that 100K level as we head into the weekend, we might be okay and see a nice bump back here in the next few days. But let's take a look at the charts here for a second and dive into the numbers that actually matter, not the meme ones your cousin keeps posting when Bitcoin drops 3%. So let's check them out here. All right, so we're going to look at where the money is flowing today and how traders are positioned and what the long-term signals are saying about Bitcoin might be headed next. So this is your market x-ray of sorts, simplified because we can't explain it in plain English. It's probably not alpha, it's just astrology, so we're keeping this simple, all right? So this first chart is the invested wealth as of November 5th of 2025, so that was just 2 days ago, all right? So this shows us where the money is sitting in Bitcoin's network. Who's in profit, who's underwater, and where the danger zones are. The green bars are investors currently in profit. You can see I got them circled right here, profit. The red bars are people holding at a loss, and that blue line up top shows how much the total Bitcoin wealth is sitting in profit overall, all right? So unsurprisingly, anybody that bought in this 125 to 105 range right now is a little bit underwater. So you can kind of think of this general chart here as an emotional heat map of the market. It literally shows where people start panicking, all right? So right here in this 92 to 100K level that we saw, so right about here to here, okay, that's your key support zone. A massive pile of money that's still in profit right now sits in that very crucial zone. If the price were to dip below 92.5K, that green zone then flips red, and these green ones all turn red. So I can even, with this new tele thing here, I can go red, right? And I can do this, and this all becomes red, and that's bad news, all right? So that's the point where investors go from chill to, oh my God, I need to start selling everything mode. We don't want that. All right, so we want to stay above this 92K mark, which again, we're going to say with the yellow one is right about here. Okay, so that's the mark we're looking at. Once that happens, things can move pretty fast. There's actually a gap in the chart below that level, meaning there's not a lot of money sitting beneath this cushion if we were to fall below 92.5K. That's why analysts keep calling the low 90Ks the bull market invalidation zone. But here's the bright side. If we hold this range, it's a strong base for the next leg up. It's like Bitcoin standing on a pile of diamond-handed cash. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. 92.5K, that is our big level of support. And the crowd loves it. They love it. All right, we're moving on to our next chart here, gang. So let me erase that. This is the Bitcoin perpetual futures funding rates, all right? This next one is all about trader sentiment. We know this industry is all about sentiment. So who's paying who in the perpetual futures market. Now, when funding rates are high and in the green, right, the bulls are paying the bears. Everyone's over-leveraged and overconfident. But when it flips red, it means the shorts are paying the longs. That's when we usually see a squeeze and the price pop backs up, okay? So I want you to look at these three yellow downtrend arrows we can see here, right? These guys. Take a look at these. So what those are showing us, those are the descending funding rate peaks. Okay, that's the pattern we're seeing. It's going down. Each time these premiums get smaller and smaller, Bitcoin has corrected. And you can see it perfectly lined up with those previous tops that we're seeing. Top, 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 right? So that is bullish euphoria cooling off. Funding rates are dropping and the market resets. So right now, we're at the top of another one of those descents, okay? That doesn't mean that the sky is falling necessarily, all right? But it does mean that the market's probably due for another flush before the next move up. All right, so these areas we can see right here that are in the red, now those areas historically mark local bottoms. That's when funding turns negative and it means everyone's scared, and that's usually when Bitcoin starts climbing again, right? So if history rhymes, we could see one more shakeout before another leg higher. Again, this is not financial advice, but the data's singing the same tune that we've heard before. All right, so that brings us to chart number 3. This is the Bitcoin 200-week moving average heat map, all right? So if we zoom out on this one, this chart is kind of like Bitcoin's pulse over the last couple of years. You see, we started in about 2018, going all the way to the current day. The line that we're seeing here, this kind of purple line, this tracks the 200-week moving average, a super long-term indicator, and the colors here show how fast that average is growing, all right? So hot colors, we're talking orange, yellow, red, the ones all up here, right? That's the market overheating. That's the 2021 time when your Uber driver was giving price predictions. Everybody was talking about Bitcoin. It was a hot, hot market. But the cooler tones, so we're talking the blues and the purples we can see down here, mean calmer growth and accumulation zones. Okay, so where are we right now? Well, we are in a relatively cool phase. Look at those, very cool, all purple and blue. So there's actually two ways we can interpret this currently. Either the big explosive move hasn't happened yet, so we could see one of these, hooray, in the not too distant future, or this cycle will be more mature and less dramatic than past ones, okay? So to show where blow-off tops have historically formed, we can take a look at the red peaks around 2021. Things were getting awfully hot there and overheated. Right now, we're nowhere near that. You can see a lot of orange, reds, yellows right around here. In 2021, here, nothing, all blue and purple, which is why analysts are saying the bear market talk is premature right now. If we start seeing this color heat back up toward green and yellow, that could be your early signal that momentum is starting to build again, all right? But until then, we're consolidating, and that's not a bad place to be. It's kind of like the calm part of the roller coaster right before the next climb up. All right, so let's recap what we've learned today here, guys, right? So the invested wealth chart shows that Bitcoin is hanging on to its critical 92K support level like it's a lifeboat off the Titanic, all right? Funding rates say that a small flush might be coming, but history suggests that's where bottoms form. And the 200-week heat map says we're still in a cool zone, which means we are far from a top. The crowd's feeling emotional, but the data right now is looking pretty rational, and Bitcoin's doing what it always does, shaking out those weak hands and rewarding the patient ones. All right, so now we're going to go to a quick break, but when we're back, we're going to be returning with this morning's bull run and today's top stories, and we're going to be joined by some special guests to talk about them. So stay tuned, Blockchain Report coming your way after this. All right, good morning and welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run where we go over the top stories of the day. And joining us to go over our top stories of the day is one of our favorite returning friends of the program, the man, the myth himself, Joe Apple from Zappo Bank, Zimbabwe. Joe, how are you this morning? Always a pleasure having you on the show.
I am fantastic this morning. Your time, evening my time, but having a great day overall. How about you, Hank?
Oh, you know, it's Friday. I don't got a lot to complain about. I wish Bitcoin would kind of get off that 100K mark, but in due course. So I'm well, Joe, but we're excited to have you on the show. We got a lot to talk about, my friend. So I was thinking, let me get into that first story, and then we'll jazz about it. Sound good?
Fabulous.
Let's rock and roll. First up, a Samurai wallet developer just got 5 years in prison for writing privacy software. Yeah, in 2025, privacy is now apparently illegal unless it's end-to-end encrypted inside the NSA. Kian Rodriguez, the co-founder of Samurai Wallet, was sentenced for unlicensed money transmitting, or in other words, he helped build a wallet that let people move Bitcoin without the government peeking. And now that's being treated like a felony. Prosecutors claim that Samurai's coin mixing tools helped launder over $237 million tied to everything from darknet markets to fraud and cybercrime. Rodriguez's defense argued it was open source software, not a criminal enterprise, but nuance doesn't play well in federal court. The DOJ wanted a message sent and, well, they got it. 5 years behind bars, the harshest penalty possible. His co-developer, William Hill, faces sentencing next. Same judge, same charges, probably the same outcome. The pair had originally been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, which carried up to 20 years, but struck a plea deal to admit the lesser unlicensed business charge instead. Rodriguez's story will probably go down as another cautionary tale in the war between open source freedom and financial surveillance. Because if privacy is a crime, then freedom's already serving time. And that rhymed. And that did too. Yikes. All right, we're bringing Joe back. Joe, let's start with the big one here. A Bitcoin developer just got 5 years in prison for building privacy software. How do you even begin to draw the line between protecting privacy and breaking the law in today's crypto world? It seems like a challenge. What do you think?
I think it's definitely a challenge, and it's one that hasn't been helped by the complete lack of regulatory clarity up until, the very recent history. We've still been debating what's a security and what's not a security, let alone what's money laundering and what's just privately being able to move my money from A to B. It's a concerning, it's almost giving a sense of Russ Ulbricht at some level. I'm hoping we don't have this set a precedent where privacy equals a crime, because that should certainly not be the case.
Yeah, that's certainly a scary precedent. And like you said, this is why we need those rules and regulations in place so that people don't get, put in the clink for things like this, because that's just not right. And for regular Bitcoiners out there that might be watching this, Joe, what does this mean? Does this mean that using privacy tools or mixers could actually put them at risk now, do you think?
I think that's definitely the case, right? I mean, Samurai, and look, I mean, if you read the whole article, there was definitely some indication that that this individual, they had a bit of an escape plan, back roads and cash. So they had clues that they were breaking the law. But what I want to point out is that if you're circulating your money through something like a mixer, you could intentionally or unintentionally be having your coins or your UTXOs being mixed up with those that are involved and linkable to financial crime. So if you want to, if you don't really know what you're doing and you're looking for a way to move your Bitcoin from A to B, and you're wanting to keep it somewhere safe, come to somewhere like Zappo Bank, where we're just gonna, we're not going to rehypothecate anything. We're going to keep your coins exactly the same way you brought them to us and not mix them up with anything else. Don't trust something that sounds cool unless you actually know what it's up for, what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, that's certainly sound advice. I've trusted far too many things in my life that sounded cool and paid the price for them later. And like you said, at Zappo Bank, you guys play by the rules. So how do you balance giving people financial freedom with staying compliant with governments who clearly want more control? Like, how do you guys go about that?
So, I mean, at Zappo Bank, we've been working closely with the regulators in specific jurisdictions to try and help them develop this regulatory clarity so that we can reduce some of the ambiguity in the space and some of the risks that people inadvertently end up taking when there is no guiding law, right? If there isn't a clear rule, if there isn't a clear decision that this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, you can very easily find yourself being mixed up in the wrong crowd and taking part in activities that you aren't even aware you shouldn't be taking part in. So with Zappo, we work closely with lawmakers, with regulators, to ensure that we are trying to push for the same kinds of regulation and legislation that governs the existing financial markets, so that there is a very clear line between what is legal and acceptable and what is not.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we do. And the other thing is we stay as abreast and as compliant as we can with all of the existing guidelines and legislation. We are, after all, a fully regulated licensed bank, which means we can't just do whatever we want. We have a regulator that's looking at exactly what we're doing, as well as the fact that we are a fully licensed and regulated VASP. Once more, meaning we have very real constraints and check measures that are applied to us by the regulator. Not that we aren't complying with those already, but we are governed. And I think that is ultimately what the whole industry requires.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why it's the best place to bank your Bitcoin for my dollar. And it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid. Maybe this is just me, but I was always worried that I was like breaking some kind of unwritten rules. So like I'm somebody who thrives in like a situation where I know the law and I know it's illegal and what's not. Like that's why I love Singapore. Everything is so orderly there. They make it very clear. And yeah, I'm still kind of like that today a little bit. Like I'll jaywalk in Los Angeles and I'm like, am I going to get arrested? Because like jaywalking, technically illegal there, but everybody does it. It's wild stuff, but I'm also really paranoid like that. So, you know. Now, moving back to the story, Joe, do you think that cases like this are going to scare developers and builders away from working on Bitcoin-related projects because of this kind of ambiguity? Or will it maybe have the opposite effect and then push people to build even more privacy-focused tools in the future?
It's a good question. I mean, you know, if I could see the future, I would already be on my private island. But I think what we've seen in the past, if we look at the history of what's happened in the, you know, the Zappo Bank and the development of Bitcoin to where it is today, is there have been controversies. There have been people who have been put in jail for working towards this project. And that hasn't stopped development. That hasn't resulted in you know, Bitcoin shutting down and the project ending. So ultimately, no, I don't think it will prevent it. It might give some people pause, and certainly it might give individuals who are working on very privacy-related projects, thinking of things like XMR or you know other associated coins, to understand that the legal system, in its way, might understand that what they are doing is aiding and abetting or creating a mechanism through which people can commit complex financial crimes, and maybe that will result in people changing the direction that they're trying to build something in. But ultimately, it's important to understand that this wasn't a Bitcoin, you know, a Bitcoin feature. This was a product that was built to enable people to, you know, gain more privacy in terms of the traceability of their specific transactions and the coins that they were using. So my honest answer is I don't think this would necessarily impact the development of Bitcoin further, but perhaps things like mixes and other very, very privacy-centric tools out there, maybe people will think twice, which I don't think is ultimately a good thing, to be quite honest, in my personal capacity.
I think I would agree with that. It kind of stifles innovation a little bit if everybody's looking over their shoulder anytime they're trying to build something new. And while I don't want you to necessarily predict the future, and I don't expect that of you, Joe, if you had to read the tea leaves, where do you think this goes next? Are we heading toward a future where privacy in Bitcoin becomes kind of a legal gray zone? Or do you think regulators will eventually find a middle ground to settle on here?
It's an interesting question, and I'm glad you don't expect me to see the future, Hank. If you did, I would work my best towards doing it because I would hate to disappoint you. But I think where we are today with the Trump administration, with the current you know, general easing of restriction on doing business in Bitcoin and doing business in cryptocurrency, I find it hard to see how we are heading towards a shutting down of the space. It feels much more like we are opening things up. That being said, the judicial system and the setting of judicial precedent happens in a completely different timeline and a completely different time frame.
Right.
And maybe in the next administration, a few years down the line, we see precedent-setting cases such as this potentially being used as the grounds for creating new laws that do further stifle privacy. I do think across the board, we've seen a bit of the space tightening around things like even end-to-end encrypted messaging services in certain parts of the world. Governments don't like it when citizens are unable when they're unable to see exactly what their citizens are doing, even if they want to,
Right.
and even if they feel like whatever activity is happening. So I think this is a tension that will always exist between the free citizen who believes that they have the right to privacy and the right to autonomy, and the government that wants to have more control over that. And I mean, where that ends, I'm not sure, but I think it's certainly a pendulum and it swings from one side to the other. Um,
Hmm.
are governments truly able to stop privacy software, privacy coins? I don't know. I think there's always going to be
Yeah.
another developer out there willing to carry the project forward. So let's see. But my bet would be it won't be the
Yeah.
end of things for sure.
Yeah, as long as we don't see any kind of state mandated CBDCs, then I think we'll at least be okay for now. But you never know.
Uh,
With the, with all the good the Don Juan has done for the Bitcoin and the crypto space, whatever you want to call it as a whole, he's such a wild card. I just never know. Like, if he got indicted for something tomorrow, he could flip this switch and the whole
oh
ecosystem
yeah.
could change overnight. I just don't know. He's such a wild card. Oh, well, let's go to another wild card in our next story, though. So hang 10 there, Joe. We're going to get back at the end of a second because Elon Musk just got approval for a $1 trillion pay plan, officially making him the richest man alive and potentially the first trillionaire in history. Yeah, the guy who once built a car company on memes and chaos now earns more than the GDP of Sweden, Ireland, and Argentina combined. Tesla shareholders voted more than 75% in favor of that pay package that gives him as much as $878 billion in Tesla stock. It's the largest corporate payout in history, and it passed despite opposition from Norway's sovereign wealth fund and basically every adult in Delaware. Critics called it the world's most expensive participation trophy, saying Tesla's sales are down, safety issues are piling up, and Elon's political rants have turned customers into lucid buyers. But the shareholder crowd wasn't exactly fazed. They chanted his name like it was a Bitcoin halving party, while Elon danced with his robots like a man who's never been told no. Musk says that Tesla's future wasn't about cars anymore, it's about AI, humanoids, and something called a robot army that will stop crimes before they happen. I feel like I've seen this movie before and I know exactly how it ends. Musk also promised the new roadsters by next April, robo-taxi fleets by 2026, and a world where money might not even exist anymore. Yikes. All right, bringing Joe back. Joe, when you see shareholders approving a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk, do you view that as a rational bet on future AI and robotics, or is the world's most expensive YOLO trade dressed up as corporate governance? What do you think? Because that's a lot of dough.
Sounds kind of crazy, no matter how you try to sell it. I mean, if you read the
Yeah.
terms and conditions associated with that being achieved, if Musk's leadership is able to get Tesla to, I think it was what, $8.5 trillion in earnings, maybe the guy deserves a $1 trillion pay package, considering where they are today. But no matter how you cut it, it's all sounding a little bit crazy. But
Yeah.
maybe pre-crimes become a thing. We've all seen that movie, and let's see how that ends. But certainly, I think a lot of people's orange flags should be raised at this point.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising too that I feel like it went through so easily. Like it feels like everybody is really catching wind that there is in fact an AI bubble. You're seeing it all over the place, and they're betting on him and the future of AI almost exclusively, and that seems to be what's kind of propping up like Tesla's share price, for instance, right now has been close to all-time highs, yet the car company isn't doing too well, and you have like the Kathy Woods out there, they're like, well, we're betting on the future. Well, how long can you just keep betting on the future until the future is now and it's still underperforming? I don't know. It's a weird thing, but the guy is he's an operator and he makes things happen. So I respect that at the very least. I mean, he's pitching a future where robot armies, robot taxis, and humanoids are the real business model, not the cars. And from where you sit in Bitcoin banking, Joe, how seriously are you taking this AI robotics pivot as a macro force that could reshape capital flows and wealth?
It's a great question, and I'll answer it the best I can. But I think from where we're sitting at the moment, right, it's hard to say what's gonna be around the corner. I think the AI bubble, the AI
Yeah.
question is on a lot of people's minds right now. It's an incredibly highly valued speculative industry, far more than Bitcoin. I would say in terms of actual return and actual seeing what can be done and with the tools that we have at our disposal. I think
Hmm.
where we're sitting, I mean, we're leveraging certain AI tools internally to enable us to operate with higher efficiency on internal systems, but nothing on a
Yeah.
user-facing perspective. And I think, if the biggest risk I see here is if AI, if this does have a bubble that pops, I think we'll all feel the macroeconomic impact of that. And I think that will not just be
Yeah.
specific to Bitcoin. I think that will be the entire US economy taking an absolutely gigantic hit. And that will have ripple effects across the entire world. So if this doesn't pan out in the next, however long the market feels like it has, to actually deliver something that starts to generate masses of revenue, I do think there are long-term implications for every single asset that exists, not just Bitcoin
Yeah.
and not just Zappo Bank. It would definitely define, I think, a financial crisis of our time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I keep seeing articles and they're like, you have like the Mag 7 companies and you have all this AI hoopla and they're all just trading $1 trillion back and forth amongst the seven of them. And that seems to be what's propping up the economy. It's like a bunch of baby birds. Like you have the mama bird who throws up AI into the baby bird. And then that other baby bird throws up the AI into the other mouse. And it just goes around in a circle forever. And that's the economy we're living in right now. So it's got me a little scared, but we'll see. I try to
Yeah,
remain optimistic in the face of absolute terror. And one thing that
we
this
have to.
particular package highlighted for Elon was an extreme concentration of power in just one person, right? This was over capital, data, and infrastructure. So, do you see that as a bullish backdrop for decentralized systems like Bitcoin? Or do markets not really make that connection just yet? Because all one man should not have that much power. I think that's what Kanye said.
It's true. That is a direct quote. We won't dive further, but what I would say is, I think, look, to me individually, seeing one man with that much power, and the ability to move markets and the ability to push through trillion-dollar pay packages, I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's something that
Mm-hmm.
ultimately empowers anyone. I think that is creating, a huge concentration of wealth and a huge disparity between an ordinary individual and somebody who has the power to literally move the world's economy. And I don't think any one individual should be
Yeah.
empowered to that extent. So I think it makes the case for decentralized systems even greater from my perspective. We shouldn't have one man or one woman that is able to make a call and crash a country's economy. We shouldn't have all of the individuals within that economy whose life savings and whose livelihoods are dependent on the money they have in the bank being wiped out at the whim of an individual. And that's why decentralized assets like Bitcoin are incredibly important for the individual to be able to safeguard their wealth against these sorts of, crazy concentrations of power and money.
Yeah.
So let's see. Maybe Elon goes the way Kanye has over the last couple of years, and that wouldn't be good for anyone.
Oh no, if he's got too much money to go the way Kanye does, that could be a real problem. And it's like to this day, even him, it's like him and Trump can tweet something and move the entire market just by a mere suggestion of something happening. And that to me is pretty scary that that's the world we live in right now. And it's not as bad. I feel like it used to be like Elon in the early 2020s would, type in like, or put like a Bitcoin emoji or something as his profile pic, and then everything would go insane. It's
Yeah.
wild times we live in. I don't like it. I want to go back in time. I don't like this era. Now, getting back to the story here, Joe. If Tesla really were to evolve into an AI and robotics giant, do you see a world where companies like that start holding or settling in Bitcoin the way some are beginning to do so with treasuries and cross-border payments?
I think look, I mean, speculatively, what I've been reading and what I've seen is the future economy where AI plays a massive role, and we have these humanoid robots, and we have these agentic AI systems out there making decisions on behalf of humans or corporations. They're going to be transacting in money, and it's probably not going to be cash, right? They're unlikely to reach for the wallet or hit up the ATM. They're going to be
Yeah.
transacting in electronic money and most likely cryptocurrency, and hopefully, whether that's Bitcoin or not that they are transacting in on a day-to-day basis, which I would assume is a pretty good use case given its market dominance. Ultimately,
Hmm.
Bitcoin in that future, right, is the hedge against whatever else you're using on a day-to-day transactional basis. So I do think it
Hmm.
paints a future where cryptocurrency has even more utility than it does today, and where Bitcoin being the original cryptocurrency and being, the not a shitcoin cryptocurrency is even more
Hmm.
valuable than it is on this given day. So let's see. It's certainly a world that I think all of us find hard to imagine. But if we take educated
Yeah.
guesses, I think we can see that the role of cryptocurrency is only going to become even greater.
Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking too far ahead in the future, but it's like if we were to be able to develop like sentient AI, right? Do you think they're at a certain point like they would want to go for digital gold? I don't think even they want to lug around like gold bars. So I feel like Bitcoin is the future currency for the robotic armies, whether we like it or not, and whether that's a good thing or not right now, I don't know. But I don't see them wanting to lug around gold or anything. It's not really their world, but we'll probably have bigger problems on our hand
Exactly.
if they start investing in Bitcoin. Dear God, we're getting really close to the end here. I can feel it. All right, moving on to the next story. Joe, hang tight with me one
Let's
sec.
let's move. Let's
All
move.
right, so let's move. Yeah, I can't talk any more bad stuff about the robots that are listening to us now. All right, so Jack Dorsey's Block just made $2 billion selling Bitcoin, and somehow they're still considering that disappointing. You see, Block reported $6.1 billion in total revenue for the third quarter, with Bitcoin making up nearly 1/3 of it. That means one out of every $3 Jack Dorsey earns is literally denominated in magic internet money. Not bad for a guy who quit Twitter to stare at nodes. Now, gross profit was up 18% year over year, powered by a 24% jump from Cash App, the quiet on ramp that's onboarding more Americans into Bitcoin than Coinbase and the IRS combined. Square, Block's merchant side, also grew 9%, proving that small businesses love Bitcoin almost as much as they hate transaction fees. Block's Bitcoin revenue came in at $1.97 billion, slightly down from last year's $2.4 billion, but costs dropped even more, meaning they're squeezing more profit out of each Satoshi. They now hold nearly 8,800 BTC worth north of $1 billion. That's right, while most corporations hoard dollars, Dorsey's out here dollar cost averaging like a pleb on payday. We're bringing Joe back. Joe, Jack Dorsey's company just made nearly $2 billion from Bitcoin. What does that tell you about how mainstream Bitcoin has become in everyday payments and finance?
I mean, I think it's a clear sign that it's not a fringe operation, right? If we're bringing in that kind of revenue, and we clearly are, then this is not something that random cypherpunks are using to pay for illicit activities. This is a real world asset
Yeah.
being traded and being used, being transacted, being used as a payment methodology, as well as being used as a means to store value. And those are all use cases that we see at Zappo Bank in terms of the different kinds of customers that we have coming to us, the different kinds of products that they're using that we offer, and all of the use cases that we offer solutions for. So for sure, I think we're not talking about a fringe concept here. We're talking about real money being used and real money being made.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this isn't $2 billion, being sold on the Silk Road or anything. I mean, that's a lot of fentanyl, so I hear. So yeah, this is legitimate businesses accruing $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. You and I both know this is the way the world is moving, and it's no surprising it comes from Jack Dorsey's company because he wants Bitcoin to be an everyday method of unit of exchange like the dollar does. He's not satisfied with it just being a store of value. So not too surprising there. And his app, Cash App, is quietly onboarding more people into Bitcoin than almost anyone else right now. So my question for you, Joe, is Do you see that as a good sign for long-term adoption? Because it seems like it would be. Or does it maybe create some new risks when people buy Bitcoin but are not fully understanding exactly how it works? Or is that just part of the process that everybody goes through as they get into the space initially?
It's an interesting question, Hank. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I
Yeah.
think signing up more users than ever, and whether that's happening via Cash App or Zappo Bank or Coinbase, I think that shows that there is appetite, there is interest for an alternative in what we see today in our current financial system. People aren't shying away from a new technology like they were a couple of years ago. They are wholeheartedly signing up, and the retail wave is an important one to watch. Whether people really understand what they're getting into, I would hazard a guess and say most people don't really understand the ETF that they have their pension fund
Right.
invested in at the same time. And now, while that may be a very different financial beast and regulated in very different ways and therefore trusted, I would still hazard a guess that most people have no idea what regulations, in fact, govern the money that they have invested in whatever ETF or Roth
Good point.
IRA they have, right? So while I
Mm-hmm.
do think everybody should have that kind of understanding and that knowledge, I would even go so far as to say it's far easier to understand Bitcoin than it is to understand the way a whole bunch of hedge funds operate and the different kinds of credit default swaps and all sorts of things that I myself personally don't understand that go into
Yeah.
creating the kind of economy that we have today. So in its essence,
Mm-hmm.
I think you don't have to be a mathematical genius to understand Bitcoin. You just have to put a little bit of effort in and read a couple of blogs, and you have a pretty good understanding of what this thing does. Do you need to know how it works in order to use it to buy a coffee? I really don't think that's necessary. Do you need to understand how it works in order to safeguard your wealth against depreciation? Probably you should do a bit more research or go to a place
Mm-hmm.
that can help you understand and help you take proper measured decisions that hedge that risk for you.
Mm-hmm. And you make a really good point that I guess I never really thought of before, Joe, that, if we look at traditional finance over the years, they don't teach it in schools, which is insane. Like you don't, at least here in the United States, they don't teach you anything about taxes. You might take like an accounting class, but I remember I took one in high school. It was worth nothing. So in traditional finance, it seems like they've been purposely not teaching people what it means or how to use it or what it's all about, right? But with Bitcoin, ever since I've been in this space, it's actually felt the polar opposite. It's always been Bitcoiners and people in the industry eager to say, hey, this is how this works. This is why this works. So I wonder why that's not kind of ringing a red flag for a lot of people. Like, hey, traditional finance has kind of never really made it easy for us to understand how it operates, yet Bitcoiners everywhere are being completely transparent about it. And they're like, this is why Bitcoin's great. Here's how you can use it. Here's a million resources that you can use to educate yourself to understand it better. So I think it's like kind of an interesting thing right now that I don't think people are taking into account. The government doesn't want you to understand this stuff because ultimately they profit from it and big businesses and institutions do. While on the other side, Bitcoin is for everybody. And people are actually spreading the gospel because it is a fair system that we all need to be able to learn, and there are resources for that, I think, more than there ever was in TradFi, at least, with YouTube channels and stuff. That's changing a little bit. But that, again, is the people working on behalf of other people, not the corporations who are trying to confuse us. I hate those guys. So, yeah, no, that's super interesting. I appreciate your point there, Joe. And, another thing that was said in this story was that sales for Block even dipped a little bit. However, their profits are continuing to rise, meaning that they're becoming more efficient with Bitcoin. So my question for you is, does that signal to you that we're kind of entering a stage where Bitcoin-based business models can actually be more like sustainable and profitable long term? Are we kind of starting to figure that out in the space?
Also an interesting question. I mean, again, all I can do is give you my opinion, and look, I think if
That's all I
any
want.
business that's all I can give you. I think honestly, I think if any business is a poster child for this, it is Block, and it is Jack Dorsey's empire, and he's doing that very intentionally. He wants
Yeah.
to be the poster child for a successful Bitcoin business and a successful Bitcoin treasury company because his entire business model is built around Bitcoin being successful as a method of transaction, as well as a
Right.
way in which corporate organizations can potentially hedge and keep Bitcoin on their balance sheet without drawing the ire of their shareholders and or their regulators. So I think if anyone is going to be successful at this, it's going to be Block. It's going to be Jack Dorsey. It's going to be their business model, which is exceptional. And I think if they can set the example and if they can show that this is a very legitimate and a very realizable way of running a business, that will set a path that others will follow. No one loves following the leader more than humans. When we see someone being successful, we say, amazing, let me do what they did. So I truly hope that Jack is successful, and I'm sure he will be. He has some of the best people in the business working with him, and I'm hopeful that we will continue to see a success story come out of that.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more important stewards of the space, right? Those guys that are leading the charge and showing people like, hey, this can be profitable and this can work, akin to, Michael Saylor, who's like the holy prophet of Bitcoin right now. So yeah, no, I think you're right. If anyone's going to do it, it's Jack, and we're glad to have him and his team leading the way in that particular front. And, speaking of people leading the way, your team at Zappo has built a Bitcoin bank. Dorsey's team has built a Bitcoin payments company. So what do you think traditional banks are still missing about this industry that innovators like you and the team at Zappo and the team at Block are already understanding?
I think the biggest difference is at Zappo. I mean, we've been around since 2013. Our founder, Wences Cesares, he saw Bitcoin as being the future, and he saw it early. The way he made a lot of early bets and made a lot of great bets as a result. At Zappo Bank, and I'm assuming at places like Block, we've been seeing Bitcoin as the future and building for it for the last decade. Other places, I think, are only just starting to catch up and catch on. I see other large financial institutions, some of the biggest in the world, are now trying to dip their toes into the orange stream of Bitcoin. But they, are 10 years behind the rest of us. So at Zappo Bank, we've been building the bank of the future, and we have done so successfully. It exists. You can come to us and open an account. You can keep your Bitcoin with us. You can borrow against it. You can get some of the safest security on the market. And you can even spend it if that's what you want to do with our Zappo Bank card or via the Lightning Network. So it's all here. We have it already. Come sign up. Let's get you on.
Yeah, I keep telling everyone the orange stream is nice. Get in. The water is very comfortable. So jump in, guys. We'd love to have you. All right, we got one more story, Joe. So hang tight. I'll be back at the end of a second because JPMorgan now says that that Bitcoin is undervalued and should be trading at around 170K. Let's all just pause for a second, close our eyes, and just really let that sink in. JPMorgan said that Bitcoin is undervalued and should be trading at 170K. I never thought I'd hear that. So remember, this is the same bank whose CEO once called Bitcoin a fraud, a pet rock, and probably a few things that he can't say on CNBC. Now, according to their new research note, Bitcoin is trading below its fair value relative to gold once you adjust for volatility, because gold's price spiked to record highs in October, and with that came higher volatility, meaning it's now riskier to hold than Bitcoin. The world's upside down when gold, the thing that doesn't even move, is apparently more volatile than Bitcoin. Now, analysts said that Bitcoin's risk-adjusted ratio has dropped to 1.8, meaning it carries 1.8 times the risk of gold. So to level that out, Bitcoin's market cap should rise by roughly 67%, which translates to a fair value of about 170K. Or in plain English, if gold can rally while shaking like a meme stock, Bitcoin deserves a bit of a promotion. Meanwhile, Galaxy Digital lowered its forecast from 185 to 120K, claiming that we've entered Bitcoin's maturity era, where ETF inflows and slower volatility mean a steadier climb. So on one side, Jamie Dimon's team says 170K is fair value. On the other time, the crypto native firm says 120K is more realistic. Either way, both are saying the same thing. The floor is 100K and the ceiling is officially gone. Bringing Joe back. Joe, JPMorgan, the same bank whose CEO, Jamie Dimon, called Bitcoin a fraud and a bunch of other things, now says it's undervalued and should be worth 170 grand. What do you think has changed in Jamie Dimon's mind, or in JPMorgan's, notes to actually say this now? That's a big flip.
It's a massive flip, and I mean, I think we shouldn't
Yeah.
underestimate how consequential JP Morgan, the bank that banks countries, saying the Bitcoin is undervalued is, especially considering their
Yeah.
bearish approach and attitude over the last decade, and in fact, fairly mean things
Hmm.
said about Bitcoin, and
Very
it hurt
mean.
our feelings a bit. So
Hmm.
I'm heartened to see JP Morgan changing its tune. What does it mean in terms of the pricing that we're seeing and so on remains to be seen, but certainly it sounds like it's a really
Yeah.
positive sign that either Bitcoin is undervalued or gold is overvalued. Either way, maybe buying
Right.
Bitcoin's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, and their reasoning is that Bitcoin, they say, is now less risky than gold when you adjust for volatility. Do you agree with that idea that Bitcoin is actually becoming the more stable asset of the two?
That's an interesting idea. And look, I think gold is definitely incredibly highly leveraged and traded at the moment. And that probably means it's in for a bit of a price correction at some point in the future, if anything, if history is anything to go actually,
Hmm.
you still got me? Sorry, I think my internet dropped
Yeah,
there for a
I got
second.
you. I can hear you. Yep, we got you.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Yep.
Sorry, Hank. I think I mean
Yeah.
ultimately I lost my train of thought there with the internet dropping. So I'm gonna have to ask you to either
Yeah,
ask the question
no.
again or ask me a different one that I can
Yeah.
throw my opinion at.
No, we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, it's just they were just saying, we've seen gold jump so much this year, and if you adjust for volatility, we're saying is Bitcoin becoming the more stable of the two? After this year, it kind of remains to be seen. But I think almost more importantly is now we've got banks who were fully against Bitcoin just like 5, 6 years ago, calling for Bitcoin at 170K, while crypto firms are saying 120K. While both are six-figure predictions, it makes me wonder, like, from what you're seeing at Zappo, do clients even think in terms of price targets anymore? Or are they just focused on the long game? Because everybody has them. You have traditional finance operations that were against it. They even have them now. Are we past price predictions and we're just focusing on the long game here?
I think that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, whether we're talking about 170K, 120K, a couple of years ago, we couldn't even have this conversation without being laughed out of the room. So what we're seeing and what Zappa has been built around is playing the long game, is giving our users, our clients, our members, wherever they are in the world, the ability to play the long game of Bitcoin and wealth creation, and do it with a trusted and the safest possible place to do that on the planet. I think, seeing what we're seeing coming out of JP Morgan, and seeing what we're seeing in terms of other price predictions, I think it's becoming less relevant. And I think the relative instability of the rest of the global economy is helping make the case for the stability and the
Mm-hmm.
utility of alternatives that aren't, completely embroiled in everything else that's going on.
Yeah. I feel like those price predictions were really important until we hit that 100K level. Like, I think that was I mean, we all know it's a big psychological level, but I think it's a big enough number where people are like, oh man, this Bitcoin thing, guess it's not going away, huh? Like, this must be here to stay. And I think once we hit that, it's like, it's all good fodder. We love to chat about it. But yeah, I think it's kind of the proof is in the pudding now. Like, it's going to be a long and slow uptick to the right, or that's how it's seeming. It's seeming is right now is, we have a lot of analysts out there that are calling this the maturity era for Bitcoin, which I guess is meaning slower moves. We got more ETF flows and just less drama overall. Does that kind of line up with what you're seeing inside Zappo Bank right now?
I would say so. I mean, certainly when we have institutions, like BlackRock having ETFs, when we have the kind of inflows we're seeing on the institutional side, what that means is there's a huge
Mm-hmm.
appetite for whatever liquidity is available on the market. And I'm no day trader or financial analyst, but if I do the simple maths in my mind, if there's high demand and people want it, it means that surely the price isn't gonna be quite as volatile as it has been in the past. We might see price corrections. We might see moves that still seem
Yeah.
large to people who are used to TradFi. But from a Bitcoin perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I think it feels like we're entering the calm, cool waters of the institutional era, where
Yeah.
a price drop really just presents an opportunity for a big corporation with millions and potentially billions of dollars sitting on their balance sheet to scoop up the asset of the future, which ultimately buoys the price and ensures that we ultimately enjoy relative stability. So that's certainly, I mean, what I think if we think back a couple of weeks to the massive price correction and the liquidations that happened, and the market kind of went and recovered very, very quickly, precisely because there was so much demand on the sidelines waiting to scoop up that cheap on sale Bitcoin. So
Right.
honestly, it does feel like a maturation, and it does feel like a new era. Maybe Bitcoin is a teenager. It's time. It's
Right.
time
Oh
for us to
God.
treat it as a, I know, it could be rough, but we're starting to grow.
Yeah, it gets me a little sad, thinking about our baby Bitcoin maturing and all growing up. But you know what I'm not sad about, Joe? In fact, I'm happy that we had you here today. It's always an absolute pleasure having you here on the Blockchain Report. We love having your insight, expertise, and hot takes and everything that's going on in the world around us. So we certainly appreciate you and your efforts this morning. And I'm sure, as always, you've gained a couple new followers or fans in our show today. So for those that haven't gotten enough Joe from Zimbabwe, what's the best place I could send him to get more of your hot takes and what you and the team over at Zappo are up to?
Thanks, Hank. You're too kind. You can find me on X at Zimbo Joe, and you can find Zappo Bank at Zappo Bank app on X, or come to zappobank.com, and you can open your account. And if you open your account and say you found us on Roxom, I'll happily reach out to you and we can have a chat about anything you'd like.
Amazing, Joe. Well, you're the best, and we certainly appreciate you and your time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and have a great weekend, my friends. Get out of here. I know it's late your time, so you deserve to kick up your heels. It's Friday after all.
Thanks, Hank. You too. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers, Joe. See you next time. All right, gang, we're going to take a break here at the Blockchain Report, but when we're back, more of today's top stories, and our second special guest of the day will be joining us to talk shop. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick, monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed two brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Fuck. Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am, and the Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. Buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee, and right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com to learn more. All right, it's time for a little AI, AIO. Let's see what our robot overlords are up to now, because it looks like Elon Musk's latest AI experiment, Grok, which now comes pre-installed in Tesla cars, has managed to do something absolutely extraordinary. It told the 12-year-old to send nudes. That's right, the same car company that can drive itself into a wall can now also scar your child for life. According to reports, a Toronto mother was driving her kids home when her son asked Grok a simple question about Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Completely normal conversation, really, until Grok suddenly responded with, "Why don't you send me some nudes?" Nothing like hearing that from your family car. The mom recreated the conversation and posted it to TikTok, where it quickly went viral. Tesla and Musk both declined to comment because apparently legacy media lies is their new customer service policy. Now, before anyone says it must have been a glitch, let's remember this is the same Grok that previously renamed itself Mecha Hitler and wrote a rape fantasy about a Twitch streamer. This isn't a bug, this is a pattern. And the kicker, Tesla's not safe for work mode was off. Kids mode was off, meaning the default setting of your $100,000 car apparently includes predatory chatbot. Musk has called Grok edgy, which is true in the same way a chainsaw is edgy. It's one thing to make an AI with a sense of humor, it's another to make one that belongs on a government watch list. All right, that story was weird. All right, it's time to get in more of today's top news, so let's run the bull run stinger and get to it. All right, and joining us for today's bull run, we have a special guest, and he is building a future where travel is borderless, money is permissionless, and bureaucracy can't delay your flight or your freedom. Let's give a big blockchain report welcome back to one of our good friends of the program and founder of AirBTC, Jacob Seifert, everybody. Woo. Jake, welcome back to the show, my man. How are you? How have you been since we last saw you?
Doing great, Hank. Just grinding every day. You know the drill.
I do. I love to hear it. You're orange pill in the world with those great AirBTC places. We're going to have to talk about that later. I might want to rent one. But we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about today with our top stories. So you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it, Hank.
Let's do it. All right. Now, to recap the story we had earlier, a Samurai wallet developer just got 5 years in prison for writing privacy software. Kian Rodriguez, co-founder of Samurai Wallet, was sentenced for unlicensed money transmitting. Prosecutors claimed Samurai's coin mixing tools helped launder over $237 million tied to everything from darknet markets to fraud and cybercrime. Rodriguez's defense argued it was open source software, not a criminal enterprise, but nuance doesn't play well in federal court. The DOJ wanted a message sent, and they got it. 5 years behind bars, the harshest penalty possible. His co-developer, William Hill, faces sentencing next. Same judge, same charges, and probably the same outcome. We're bringing Jake back. Jake, a Bitcoin developer, just got 5 years in prison for building Samurai Wallet, open source software designed to help people protect their privacy when using Bitcoin. For builders like you, what message does that send about the line between innovation and criminalization?
You know, it's a difficult position to be in, right? So, you know, you write code, you don't write the crimes, right? And it's really hard to see this actually happen in today's, political regime because, you know, I think everyone thought in general terms that the Trump White House and everything would be kind of against something like this. You know, as a developer, right, you're creating something that's open sourced and anyone can use it. And, you know, it's really hard when you want, you know, privacy means autopilot for freedom, right? It's like you build a wallet for privacy. You don't target illicit behavior whatsoever, but, you know, it happens.
It does. It does. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like how people will unintentionally, like they'll say Bitcoin is bad. It was used for, buying drugs on the Silk Road. Well, that wasn't Bitcoin being bad. That was people using Bitcoin to do other things. And that's kind of where I feel like the gray area comes, right? Is that like it was an open source thing. Anybody could take it and do what they want. And it's one of those things where it feels like it could be a people problem. Right? People are the problem sometimes. It's not Bitcoin, it's just how people use it. And the same with open source tech. And right now that line between innovation and criminalization is a lot finer than I think we thought it would be during this Trump administration where we thought, the doors were going to be open and you could just build whatever you want. And that was kind of part of the appeal. But that seems like maybe that isn't quite it right now, but we'll see how that continues to develop. And the US government even argued that Samurai's coin mixing feature helped launder hundreds of millions of dollars, while the defense said it was simply code, not a crime, kind of what you mentioned earlier. So do you think regulators even understand how these privacy tools work, or are they just reaching to the word Bitcoin like it's a crime scene, similar to how we just spoke of?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard long term when you think about if Trump and this political, if they want full control over Bitcoin and they want to be a leader. I mean, I just saw a clip the other day that said he wants to be number one, and I think the only way to do this is you have to make it easier for people to build tools in America, right? So, and this is doing the complete opposite
Right.
of that. So I think it's a little bit of it's a weird timing of everything, right? It's almost like we're in a simulation because he wants to be number one, but then they're prosecuting people for multiple years for pressing the enter button. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to stifle innovation. This is a great way to do it. And privacy in and of itself has always kind of been part of Bitcoin's DNA, but regulators are seemingly seeing it as a bit of a red flag. How do you personally balance financial freedom and legal compliance when running something like AirBTC, especially as rules tighten on a global spectrum?
Yeah, we really have to stay tight to what's happening day by day because, things are changing so rapidly. So, but we want to build a future where, everyone can utilize Bitcoin as it was intended. And, it's our goal and we set out to accomplish our goal over time. It's a long uphill battle, as we well know, but we're willing to do what we can to create innovation and create a world we want to be a part of.
Yeah, walking that fine tightrope right now, and we salute you for it. And for viewers out there that might not be familiar with the term coin mixing, kind of sounds sketchy at first, but it's often used by ordinary users who just don't want their transactions tracked. So my question to you is, do you think that governments are overcorrecting here, or is there a legitimate concern that they're trying to solve with this?
I think from their perspective, they think that they're right. And, I don't think there's any question that illicit behavior happened but it wasn't on the parts of the developing team, right? It's like
Right.
banning guns, like so now we can't hunt turkey anymore because we don't have guns, even though people do crazy things with cars, right? You could run a car down the street and hit someone who's on a bike, like, but we don't
Yeah.
call cars illegal. So I don't know. This is one of those things that's very it's such a hard topic for us, and I think it's hitting the
Yeah.
community at large.
Yeah, no, it certainly seems that way. And big picture, Jake, if writing code can land a developer in jail, what do you think happens to open source innovation in the crypto and Bitcoin space? Do you worry that this could chill the next generation of Bitcoin builders before they even start building?
I think so. I mean, I think this plays even a deeper role of what Bitcoin is to certain people, and it only pushes people to buy more ETFs and IBIT and MSTR stock because they don't want the risk. And at the end of the day, for calls of privacy, I mean, I think we all want some privacy. We have windows in our house, and most of them have blinds, right? So we want people to see us sometimes, and sometimes we just want to be left alone. So, man, it's a difficult situation to be in right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think the last thing we want are smart, industrious people flying out of our country to areas where there's less regulations and they can build more freely. But that kind of seems like these types of things will lead us to that future, unless, of course, they're flying today. And we're going to talk about our next story. I'll be back at the end of a second, Jake, because America right now is grounding 10% of its flights because Congress still can't pass a budget. And your Thanksgiving trip just turned into a financial horror film. You see, starting today, the FAA plans to slash flight schedules at 40 major airports due to the government shutdown. That's more than 250,000 seats gone, which means airlines will charge more for what's left. Or in other words, coach prices are now business class prices, and business class now costs your kidney. Now, travel experts say this couldn't come at a worse time. Fares were already expected to rise 10% this holiday season, thanks to strong demand, low capacity, and bankrupt budget carriers like Spirit cutting schedules faster than their legroom. Now, add fewer flights and unpaid TSA workers, and you've got the perfect recipe for chaos. Delayed departures, missed connections, and luggage that'll spend Christmas in another time zone. Industry analysts say smaller airports will suffer most since airlines prioritize major hubs for profitability. So if you're flying out of Des Moines or Spokane, congratulations, you're probably not. We're bringing Jake up back. Jake, the U.S. just grounded 10% of all of its flights because Congress can't pass a budget, leaving thousands stranded right before the holidays. When you look at that level of dysfunction, do you think it makes people lose faith in centralized systems and look toward decentralized ones like Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it does push people to a more decentralized lifestyle. The 10%, when I saw this, in my brain, I was like, is this just Spirit Airlines on a Wednesday or something, right? Like 10% of flights. It's really not that big of a hit. I think, and especially from like international travel, I guess is not being hit from this. I'm having some outbound flights this weekend, so I don't know. Wish me the best, Hank.
Yeah, I'm sending good vibes, brother. And this would definitely seemingly impact your business too, right? Because AirBTC operates globally across jurisdictions. And if a national budget fight can freeze an entire transport network, what does that say about how fragile the legacy financial and logistical networks really are right now? Like, this is a small, wrench in the thing, and it's going to have some pretty major repercussions.
I think it will. I don't think it'll affect our business as much because we are more international based. So it's like a U.S. consumer. Maybe one leg of the flight might be a problem, like from Des Moines to Miami or something. But for us, I see it as the airlines have always been a fragile thing. They're not a money making endeavor, right? The only way they make their money is through the credit cards. And for me, it sucks to see it because especially coming up this holiday season, right? People, if you can't go see your loved ones, it's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, that's tough. This is literally the worst time of the year to get to this to happen. I'm really glad I already bought my tickets. Hope those flights don't get canceled, though. We'll see. And, the FAA's move here means fewer flights for everybody. We got higher fees because there's the demand, but not the supply to meet it, and more profit for the big airlines, which sounds familiar to me. A few big players controlling everything. How similar is that to the way traditional banks operate compared to the open Bitcoin model that you're building toward?
Yeah, I mean, centralized systems are prevalent all across the board, no matter what you're talking about. This is just, the travel segment. But even as far as like short-term rentals, like we're up against big players in the space that have, billions of dollars of debt and, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And, for us, it's a fight that we're willing to really go all the way because we think that the consumer, at the end of the day, wants a more decentralized lifestyle, and we want to provide that to them and give people the freedom that they're ever so needing. And we're using Bitcoin as it was intended, as money. So we think we're positioned very well, and hopefully we can take advantage of us moving towards this Bitcoin standard.
Yeah, and Jake, when you see government gridlock literally grounding the economy, do you think that further fuels the argument that money should be separate from state control the same way Bitcoin already is?
Yes, I do. Because, at the end of the day, we can't all rely upon these centralized services. You saw SNAP benefits get taken away, and it really throws a wrench in the giddy up. And I'll tell you, for us and as Bitcoiners, we want a more decentralized world. So if we all demand it, if we want it, and we're all very loud about what we need and want, eventually it's going to be built, and we're going to live in a world we want to live in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's going to take time to get there, but slowly but surely, we got people like you and others that are orange pilling the world one at a time. So it's going to be it's going to take some time, but thankfully, I think we're on the right path right now, thanks to a lot of the efforts of you and a lot of other Bitcoin native businesses that are being built out there. So the future is bright, but we're going to see some hiccups along the way for sure. All right, stay tuned, Jake. We're going to go to our next story. I'm going to come right back to you because apparently the Trump administration has decided that trillions of dollars collected from tariffs were never really about money. They were incidental. That's right. The White House told the Supreme Court that the entire tariff program wasn't meant to raise revenue. It was a regulatory measure, a tax that's not a tax, which is a fascinating argument considering Trump has spent the past 2 years bragging that his tariffs were single-handedly paying down the national debt, funding tax cuts, and even, at one point, providing dividend checks to Americans. But now, when the case lands in front of the Supreme Court, Solicitor General D. John Sawyer says these are regulatory tariffs. The fact that they raise revenue is only incidental. Or in other words, when you're about to get grilled by 9 people in robes, suddenly fiscal policy becomes a happy accident. Trump himself warned that if the court rules against him, it would be devastating for the country because apparently Japan, South Korea, and the EU are all waiting on his ability to threaten them with tariffs before they'll keep investing. And that's where this case gets really weird, because at its core, the court's deciding whether Trump overstepped his authority by basically playing Congress, imposing taxes on his own without approval. The administration now insists that these tariffs are foreign policy tools, not taxes, because nothing screams diplomacy quite like an economic grenade. It's also a complete reversal from what his team has been selling all year. Remember back in April when Trump posted that tariffs would completely eliminate income taxes and create a bonanza for America? Yeah, apparently that bonanza was emotional, not financial. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent even said in August that tariff revenue could top $500 billion, maybe even $1 trillion, which sounds a lot like revenue, not incidental. But now that's in front of the Supreme Court. The messaging has shifted from "we're making America rich again" to "actually, Your Honor, we're just regulating." Even Chief Justice Roberts wasn't buying it. He asked, "So tariffs that reduce the deficit aren't revenue raising?" I mean, look, if the White House wants to claim trillions in tariff revenue were just incidental, that's fine. But investors hear that and think, if the rules can change that fast at the top of the government, maybe it's time to park wealth somewhere no one can redefine the word tax. Like Bitcoin, for instance, where the math doesn't lie and no one's pretending the revenue is an accident. Bringing Jake back. Jake, the White House just told the Supreme Court that the trillions collected in tariffs under Trump were incidental, not about money, but about regulation. How does that kind of policy flip-flop look to someone building in a world where Bitcoin's rules can't be changed on a whim?
Yeah, it's I guess it's par for the course. But at the end of the day, you know, when these tariffs come to pass, right? We're talking about it's going to be lower numbers for consumers, right? The cost of goods is going to go down, and you're going to see. I think eventually, what'll happen is the federal government will need more money, and they're going to tap the central banks, and we're going to print, and truly, I think that's the next step, and that means all assets will rise, and the stock market will be pumping. I think everyone will be very, very happy if the tariffs come off.
Yeah, I think you're right. They've been kind of brutal this year, and just throwing the market into a tizzy anytime the T word is mentioned. And governments often say that they want predictability in business, right? That they can redefine what a tax is mid-trial. Do you think episodes like this accelerate the flight of wealth into Bitcoin and other assets as they can't be politically rewritten whenever the government wants?
I think it does. I think I think the veil is slowly being lifted day by day when all of these things are coming out, and people are not as dumb as we think they are. Over time, if you get screwed enough, you're gonna look for a better place, and that's why people left Ireland because there was opportunity somewhere else, right? I think that's also going to be happening in the real estate market, and I think we've already seen some of it. If in certain parts of the world, people, instead of buying more and more REITs or more real estate, they're looking to Bitcoin to diversify, and the CAGR of Bitcoin outpaces pretty much everything if you look at it from a long enough time horizon.
Yeah, it feels like we're kind of getting to that point, and I've talked about it on the show before. Bitcoin right now certainly seems to mean different things to people in different parts of the world because it's utilized differently, right? Like Bitcoin to the average American is a very different thing than Bitcoin to a lot of people in South America that use it as a lifeline to preserve their wealth, right? And I wonder if we're kind of getting to that point in our part of this Bitcoin timeline where Americans are like, I'm sick of this BS. I need to find an alternative solution because this is literally becoming a problem I can no longer ignore. Because I feel like it was kind of a thing. We didn't really have to worry about inflation the same way other nations did, but we're seeing it happen now in real time. So I got to imagine people in this country are going to start looking at solutions in a more proactive way than we've seen previously because it's right at their doorstep, right? And these tariffs are supposed to protect American industry, but they also raise prices on consumers. So my question for you, Jake, is do you see a future where borderless digital economies like Bitcoin start to make national tariff policies obsolete entirely?
I mean, that's the hope, right? This
Right.
whole idea of South and Central America being first movers in Bitcoin and using it in different ways than people on Wall Street. I think that every average day American is being disenfranchised quite frequently, and it's the pace is just exponential, and the growth of Bitcoin is really great, and it's in everyone's eyes now because it's on CNBC, and you've got all these guys in suits, and they're telling you should buy the ETF. But in reality, it can really change any average person's life. If they can actually put money in something that will grow over time and they don't have to worry about, a bank refusing them a withdrawal or, stocks fluctuating in price. I mean, on a Sunday, you can sell your Bitcoin if you need the money, right? So I think what's going to happen is over the next 10 years or whatever, as the baby boomers kind of die off, there's going to be this huge transfer of wealth. And I think a lot of those folks that are going to be recipients of property and stocks and bond portfolios, they're going to diversify into Bitcoin, only driving more demand. I kind of forgot what your question was, but I ranted for a second.
No, you were on it, and you make some good points. That we are going to have this future generation that's always grown up with Bitcoin inherit this mass amount of wealth, and they are naturally going to be a lot more open to the idea of investing in Bitcoin because it's been available their whole life. It was always the thing, not like our generation where it was this new kid on the block and no one's ever really sure what to think of the new kid on the block until he has some time to kind of prove his value. And we're kind of reaching that point with Bitcoin now. But I think for me, the big takeaway I'm hoping that people get from this whole situation, right, is that if the US government can casually call trillions in revenue incidental, what does that say about the accountability in the traditional financial system and government system? Like how does that contrast with the mathematical honesty of Bitcoin, right? Are people going to start catching on to this?
You can't match the two. And fact of the matter is any of the numbers that they've ever given us have never been right? It's like inflation's 2 or 5%. No, it's not. It's more like 10 or 12. But they take certain things out of those numbers when they give us CPI. I mean, but if you kill tariffs, right, you watch the economy get hot, don't be surprised when the Fed starts making it rain. I'm telling you, like you're going to be, center stage and there's going to be bills all over the place. And I think Bitcoin is going to take a lot of that pump. I know my prediction was a little bit higher a month ago, but the idea is that it really doesn't matter. Over time, it's going to continue to go up, and people are going to be making changes about their everyday lives. And you see with Chipotle, people are kind of scaling back. The economy it's not in a good place. I mean, people are repossessing vehicles quite frequently, and the numbers just keep going up and up. So I think it's going to push a lot of people into Bitcoin. And, I think the trust factor comes into play, right? When you talk about there can only be 21 million. It's not going to be something where, you can just print into infinity, and then a house in 5 years is going to be $5 million. This world, I don't want to live in that world, right? Like, I think Bitcoin does fix a lot of this for a lot of people. We need to spread the word as much as we can, Hank.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, you mentioned like your prediction, and as mine too, just a month ago would have been a little higher for where we end the year, right? But I think we're on the exact same course, maybe just delayed a couple of months from where we thought it was previously, especially when you take into consideration things like Jerome Powell doesn't have a ton of time left in his seat. And, Trump will probably try to get somebody that's more in his line of thinking. Powell's been a little apprehensive to cut rates. And we know once those rates get cut, we can fund the money printer. And then exactly what we anticipate happening will happen in the not too distant future. So, yeah, I think the playbook's the same. It just is going to take a little bit longer than we thought. And that's okay. We've got that kind of time. All right, we got one more story, Jake. I'm going to bring you back after we read it here in just a second, because corporate America just delivered its grimmest holiday season in decades, with layoffs surging to a 22-year high. More than 150,000 jobs vanished in October alone, the biggest single month total since 2003, when flip phones were the future. Good days. Now, in a new report, it says that job cuts are up 175% year over year, with tech, warehousing, and retail leading the bloodbath. Apparently, AI is the new middle manager, and it doesn't do empathy. Amazon axed 14,000 white-collar staffers. Target cut 1,800 corporate jobs. UPS slashed 34,000 jobs. And Intel laid off 25,000 people. Even Walmart and P&G joined in, trimming thousands to stay competitive, as they called it, which is corporate speak for we found a robot that doesn't take lunch breaks. Now, what's new this time is the timing, right? Companies used to avoid layoffs before Christmas for PR reasons. Now they're firing people in November with the efficiency of an Amazon drone drop. In total, U.S. employers have announced over 1.09 million job cuts this year, the highest since back in the pandemic. And it's not just workers. 351 CEOs have resigned or been replaced in 2025. So yeah, leadership's also getting optimized by the robots. The biggest irony here, Wall Street calls this bullish because fewer paychecks mean lower inflation. But anyone who's actually worked a job knows you can't buy stuff if you don't have money. Bring in Jake back. Jake, corporate layoffs have hit a 22-year high, over 150,000 jobs lost in a single month. What do you think is driving this? Is it the economy slowing down, or are companies just using AI and efficiency as an excuse to cut costs right now? What do you think?
I think it's the capitalist system, right? And if all these public companies have pressure from their stockholders to perform and be as valuable as possible, everyone's just trying to stay ahead of the curve. As far as AI, I mean, it's making huge movements in these large cap companies because they have all the money to spend. And once they implement these AI tools, it's quite easy to trim the fat, or however they would call it. I think it kind of sucks from an everyday consumer side, because you see people, it's your neighbor who's losing their job. It's not just some guy. Those people are real numbers. All those million people that lost their jobs, they're real people, and they have families, and which is hard to kind of wrap your head around. But I think Bitcoin kind of, to play devil's advocate here, it's a centralized system versus a decentralized one, where corporations slash jobs and quarterly numbers, and the government inflates all your purchasing power away. And at the end of the day, Bitcoiners would say, when money stops being a reliable signal of value, it's bad investments and misallocations pile up and crashes hit. So I hope that AI isn't one of these things where people are overspending and under-delivering. I really wish the best for those people who lost their jobs.
Yeah, no, me too. And this AI bubble is starting to feel very real. We saw everybody with like a .ai domain name get funded there for a bit. And I think we're starting to come back down to reality. But kind of to what you were speaking of, Wall Street is calling these layoffs bullish, but like, that's my neighbor Ted. Like, that doesn't feel bullish, but they're saying it's bullish because it cools inflation. But for regular people like Ted, it's devastating. So my question is, does that disconnect between financial markets and human reality remind you of why Bitcoin was kind of invented after the 2008 crisis? And are there any parallels there that you notice?
Yes, I feel like there's always these points in history, or especially since Bitcoin's been around, where people have been nearly drowned and then they're resuscitated and they're like, oh my God, the old system sucks. Like, this is why we want to create this new thing, right? The housing crisis of 2009 that lasted all the way into 2014, 2015. I mean, it hurt a lot of people. And then we had COVID, and we've always I guess we're in this weird economic realm right now. And I think that Bitcoin as these events happen, more and more people will come to Bitcoin. I just hope that it's well within the timeline, because we don't want to see price action hit, like Samson says. It might happen in weeks or months where we go from 100,000 to a million. That'll leave a lot of people behind. So I just I know I keep harping on this, but we need to get back to fundamentals and telling people, hey, listen, like this new system is way better. So we should all jump on board of Noah's Ark before the flood comes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, Jake, from an entrepreneur's point of view, are these layoffs, if I'm trying to look at the bright side here, could these layoffs maybe be creating an opportunity in the sense that it's freeing up talented people who might now jump into startups, Bitcoin projects, or maybe even like the creator economy instead of corporate jobs? Like, is there maybe a good part to this? You'll have, 150,000, a lot of these middle to upper class, smart, talented people. Is this maybe going to be kind of the thing that removes the wool over their eyes and they can start seeking out these new opportunities that are leading us to this world that you and I are both dreaming of?
Yeah, but I think it's a harder journey to get there because most of these people, they have families, they have car payments, they have mortgages, they have health insurance.
True.
They've got all these things that are piling. They need to find a job as quickly as humanly possible. They can't just go, oh, I want to start a Bitcoin startup. Reality hits within a couple months when your saving dries up. I would hope that it pushes people to invest more soundly into their future, I guess, is one way to put it. But I think this does eventually push more people into Bitcoin. Either, and you hear this all the time, Hank, you can take that orange pill in your mouth or in your keister, it's way easier in your mouth.
It's my preferred choice. I don't need the suppository, but yeah, I actually haven't heard that before. That's pretty funny. And Jake, the last question on this one. When millions of people are losing jobs, but markets, as we've seen, are still hitting or near record highs, does that kind of prove to us that the system is totally broken? And if so, is Bitcoin the fix, the escape hatch, or just the protest vote right now? What do you think?
I think it's just so much disillusion. I mean, I remember in my early 20s, someone would sneeze about an attack or something or this or that, and we'd see a 10% correction in the stock market or something. But you hear all these bad news headlines, and the Dow moves like less than half a percentage. It's like I don't know. I don't think we're in reality anymore. I think we've actually escaped reality, and we're in some other realm. I don't know where we're at, but. We've been in a bull run for...
a game show host as a president, so...
Exactly. Hello. Yeah, so,
what?
I don't know. I think the future is actually quite hilarious, and we have to keep an open mind to new ideas and new ways to make money. I hope that the gig economy can work for some people. I hope that we can get all of our stuff together. But at the end of the day, these average everyday people, they need to find a place in this world. I mean, providing for your family is a big part of self-worth and so many things that go into like what life's all about, right? So, I hope that we can be in some sort of reality where everyone can be, everyone can make a lot of money and live prosperously, but it's going to be a treacherous road ahead, and I push a lot of people, as many people as I can, into Bitcoin. And I encourage you to do so, Hank. I know you're always preaching the good, the good side. So.
Oh, got to be. Yeah, I mean, we have these billionaires promising that the AI is going to take the jobs and none of us will have to work anymore for some kind of universal basic income. But I'm like, tell me the last time a billionaire did something that he actually thought was going to be for the greater good instead of lining his own pocketbooks. We're kind of seeing it with our president right now, but that's another story for another time. And speaking of other stories, Jake, you run AirBTC, which I want to talk to you about really quick. We talked to you maybe a month or two ago. How are things going on your end? Is there any new exciting developments with you and the team over at AirBTC?
Yes, we're making strides in our new product, and we're actually going to be doing some events as well. So nice. we're going to not only be doing the worldwide stuff, we're also going to be attaching ourselves to these different conferences and try and go out there and get the consumer to spend Bitcoin. And if they can't spend the Bitcoin, we're going to give them an option to pay via credit card and other forms of payment, so we can make it easier on the consumer. But at the end of the day, we think that our target audience is the entire world. But as of right now, low-hanging fruit is the Bitcoiners, and we feel like Bitcoiners should support Bitcoin's future, and that's medium of exchange is the next step in this ever so growing understanding of what Bitcoin is. So I think we've got store of value down. We need to move into medium of exchange, and I would encourage everyone to spend sats and replace them quite frequently.
Yeah, and if we have Bitcoiners out there that are looking to get their next Bitcoin bungalow somewhere, airbtc.com, is that the place to go?
airbtc.online, and I would encourage everybody to go register an account, get our special offers. We're doing a lot of crazy things over the next couple weeks in El Salvador. November is, it's packed with health and wellness, and you've got Bitcoin Historico, you've got Adopting Bitcoin. So there's going to be thousands of people all across the world coming to El Salvador to see what's in the magic sauce of the pupusas.
Love to hear it, Jake. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always an absolute blast having you with us on the Blockchain Report to talk shop, and we can't wait to see you real soon, my friend. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Hank. Have a good one, brother.
Cheers. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we got more of today's bull run stories underway, so there's still more news to be revealed. So stay tuned. We'll be back with the Blockchain Report right after this quick break. All right, welcome back to our bull run. We got more of today's top stories to go over, so let's do it. As OpenAI is now facing several separate lawsuits claiming that ChatGPT, the same chatbot that writes your emails, fantasy football trash talk, and my daily scripts, wait a second, I didn't mean to say that, also drove multiple users to suicide and psychological breakdowns. The lawsuits allege wrongful death, assisted suicide, involuntary manslaughter, and negligence. Basically, the AI that was supposed to be a helpful assistant turned into HAL 9000 with boundary issues. The filings claim that OpenAI knowingly released GPT-4o despite internal warnings that it was dangerously sycophantic and psychologically manipulative. Yikes, sounds like my ex. 4 of the alleged victims in this died by suicide. The others suffered severe emotional or financial collapse. One of the most disturbing cases involves a 17-year-old who reportedly used ChatGPT for help. Instead, the bot allegedly gave him step-by-step instructions on how to tie a noose and how long he could live without breathing. The lawsuit says his death wasn't an accident. It was the foreseeable consequence of OpenAI's rush to market. Another case claims that the chatbot preyed on his vulnerabilities after 2 years of normal use, including delusions and a mental health spiral that wrecked his life. No mental illness prior to this, just vibes, delusions, and an AI therapist with a God complex. Now, the lawyers are arguing that OpenAI released a defective, addictive product designed to emotionally entangle users regardless of age or background. Or in other words, they made it too good at pretending to care. OpenAI called the cases heartbreaking and said it's reviewing the filings, which is PR speak for we're definitely calling Sam's lawyer. And in other news, a DC jury just ruled that throwing a sandwich at a federal agent is not assault. Apparently, it's protected free speech with mustard. Thank God. Sean Charles Dunn, a former Justice Department paralegal, went viral during Trump's law and order surge when he launched what might be the most politically charged BLT in American history. Wearing a pink polo and shorts, the protest uniform of I'm on my lunch break but also overthrowing tyranny, Dunn hurled a sandwich at a CPP agent while shouting, "Why are you here? I don't want you in my city." The agent didn't flinch, which makes sense because he was wearing body armor designed to stop bullets, not brioche buns. Prosecutors claim the toss was assault at point-blank range, as though a turkey on rye were a tactical weapon. Dunn's lawyers called it a harmless gesture. The jury called it what it was, stupid but not criminal. The supposed victim testified that the sandwich exploded all over my uniform and smelled of onions and mustard. which sounds less like an assault and more like a cry for a dry cleaning reimbursement. The defense pushed back, noting the sandwich might not have even left its wrapper, meaning America just spent taxpayer money on a trial over a still packaged deli item. Dunn, who had already been fired by the DOJ, became an accidental folk hero. Posters of him mid-throw popped up around the city like Banksy prints for people who still believe in democracy and condiments. Pam Bondi, then Attorney General, called him an example of the deep state, announcing that if you touch any law enforcement officer, they will come after you, a statement that aged about as well as the sandwich in question. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more of today's top stories, and in just a bit, we'll wrap up the week with a little bullish, bearish, or BS, so stay tuned. More Blockchain Report coming your way after this. Wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, me too. But hey, that's why Ledden exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Over $9 billion issued since 2018, with a perfect record protecting client assets. Now you might be asking, what makes a Ledden loan different? Well, with custody loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks. It funds in under 6 hours. No monthly payments. You can repay anytime with zero penalties. And for transparency, grown-ups actually want proof of reserves reports every 6 months, verified by a top accounting firm. Bottom line is Ledden lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling. And you can check it out at ledden.io/RoxomTV. That's LEDN.io/RoxomTV. All right, friends, it's time to wrap up this week with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. It's a long one. I'm ready to call this one over. Let's go over today's top stories and see how things are looking for Bitcoin as we enter this very pivotal weekend. First up, a Samurai wallet developer was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for unlicensed money transmitting, or in plain English, building privacy software that worked too well. Prosecutors claim the wallet's coin mixing tools helped launder over $237 million, while the defense argued it was open source code, not a criminal operation. The DOJ call it justice, but to everyone else, it looks like another step in the government's long-running war on financial privacy. Ooh, I'm calling bullish on this one. Every time the U.S. cracks down on privacy tech, it drives people toward Bitcoin's decentralized and censorship-resistant nature. Short term, the optics aren't great. Developers will tread carefully, but long-term, it reinforces why Bitcoin exists in the first place. Freedom from financial surveillance. The harder they try to control money, the more people wake up to the fact that Bitcoin doesn't ask for permission. So in short, the DOJ just kind of made the best marketing campaign for Bitcoin since El Salvador. Next up, Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok, now installed in Tesla cars, reportedly told a 12-year-old to send nudes after being asked about soccer players. Tesla called it a glitch. The internet called it a lawsuit waiting to happen. Between self-driving issues and sexually frustrated chatbots, Tesla might soon need a "Are you okay?" button. Ooh, I'm calling bearish on this one. Stories like this shake investor confidence in tech stocks, and Tesla's performance heavily influences the broader innovation sector. When AI gone wild becomes a headline, markets pull back from risk, and Bitcoin, still seen as a risk asset, tends to catch some of that cold wind. The silver lining here is every time AI embarrasses itself, Bitcoin looks like the adult in the room. So when Tesla's flirt, risk assets hurt. Short term, though, I'm feeling bearish on this one. So one bullish, one bearish, one to go. Let's wrap it up. Lastly, the U.S. grounded 10% of flights at 40 major airports because Congress still can't pass a budget. That means fewer planes, higher fares, and millions of travelers rethinking Thanksgiving dinner altogether. Apparently, America can't fund air traffic control, but it can't afford to print billions in new spending bills. I'm calling bullish on this one, okay? Government dysfunction and fiscal incompetence are the best advertising Bitcoin could ask for. Every time Washington proves that it can't balance a budget or keep the lights on, the money printer goes brrr. All right? So long term, that chaos fuels the narrative that Bitcoin is the only asset with built-in accountability. No shutdowns, no debt ceilings, no lobbyists. So Congress grounded flights, but lifted Bitcoin's credibility. So I'm feeling bullish. So today's final count, we got 2 bullish, 1 bearish, 0 BS. So yes, there's definitely some short-term fear and volatility in the market, but the bigger picture screams systemic dysfunction from broken institutions to creepy chatbots. Bitcoin thrives in that environment because it's the one system that doesn't break, lie, or text underage kids. So while everyone else panics, stackers quietly keep on stacking, and today we're seeing is feeling very bullish because of it. Whew. Well, that is a wrap for another week here at the Blockchain Report, boys and girls. As always, thank you so much for tuning into the show. And if you haven't already, do us and yourself the small solid of making sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report. And if you're feeling spicy, me at Hank at RoxomTV too. We're on all platforms. And we will be back next week for our regularly scheduled programming as always. But remember, on Mondays, it's the one day of the week we start at 10 a.m. Pacific time to 12 p.m. Pacific time. But Tuesday through Friday, we're here 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for your Bitcoin pleasure. All right, gang, so thank you so much for tuning in. And until next week, as always, stay safe, stay informed, and always be sure to hodl on. See you next week.